Hi, everybody. It's Wendi again with Helm, and we're back with the I Went There podcast of one. And today we're going to be talking about the effects of betrayal trauma or infidelity trauma, you can call it whatever you want, trauma on your brain, body, and spirit. And let's get right to it. So, infidelity can be any number of things. It is not always that somebody went and had sex with somebody else. Infidelity can take many forms, and even holding intimacy, like almost holding it, at like, I'm not going to sleep with you because I don't like whatever it is you don't do, or you're not worth it, or anything like that, or just even not saying anything and holding back intimacy with somebody is a form of betrayal trauma. And then we've got people that work too much. And I'm not talking about somebody who's working all the time trying to provide for their family. I mean, we all have been there, done that. And I'm talking about somebody who, and they may say that's what they're doing. In fact, often that's what they say they're doing. And that's a form of gaslighting. And we'll get to that later. But is somebody that is working to avoiding the intimacy and the family by working all the time. And I mean, it's quite common. And then people that are just cold and distant, just in general. They've taken on a demeanor of, you have a conversation with them, and instead of answering you and paying attention to you and hearing you, the answers are like, or I didn't hear you, what? Or what? You kind of get that response instead of the one you used to get was like, what? Oh, wow, yeah, that's wild. Tell me more about it, or anything like that. And then there's like dismissive behavior blaming too, where anything you do is you're blamed for. Like you may be actually just trying to repair your relationship legitimately. And we have to ask ourselves what we're actually doing too. Are we doing some of the things that are, causing betrayal as well? And sometimes we do out of defense or just fear or pulling back from our own traumas and all. But, if you figure out that you are being blamed for things, that's just another form of gaslighting. Let's give an example. So if somebody says, I don't like that you're coming home from work late every night and that you don't call and let me know. And they say, well, that's your fault because you bought 3 pairs of shoes. I mean, is it really, or is it that they just are avoiding home? I mean, it could be either thing. It's not that's never true, but you kind of have to get to know what that is. Anyways, so and then we're going to go into now some of the things that the effects that trauma can have on you. I mean, it can lead to actual PTSD. You can actually be harmed to the point where you experience post-traumatic stress disorder from, like, even short term, some of these things, even finding out somebody cheated. I mean, immediately you can start to get those things, but more so, this is not usually that something that suddenly this happened. I mean, the sudden action of the infidelity may be a very sudden action. They may have never displayed anything like that before, and suddenly they do that and go that far. But there's usually some signs that, they're working too much. They were disinterested in you and all. And so, there's signs. There's not always, though. And sometimes we miss them. A lot of times we miss them, or we dismiss them. Or in such a fight to have what we think we want, we overlook them or change reasons for them. Anyways, so another thing that can lead to is obviously depression. We all know that. And then weight gain, weight loss, a lot of self-shame. We often will get into self-shame, start questioning ourselves as, what am I doing wrong? Did I not look pretty enough? Did I not work hard enough? Oh, well, maybe it's because I let myself get to this state. Maybe I didn't support him enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not young enough. I don't know. There's a lot of things. And you can get to the self-shame spot being a perfectly confident person and literally get yourself into that spot. And by get yourself into that, I don't mean that. That's a misspeak. Is basically what I mean by get yourself is you can stay in a situation where shame starts to be something you're riddled with because of the situation that goes around you and your either inability or your just not getting out of it or not causing a change. And most of the time that's because we don't know how, or we're scared. We're scared if we say, hey, you have to come home from work at a decent hour, or I don't like the fact that you've hired only these super attractive women and you're having a much more friendly relationship with them than I feel comfortable with. And once again, we have to question, is that our insecurity, or are they actually doing something that we should be insecure about? And so then we also get into things like insomnia, and there's a lot of long-term health effects we'll start to feel. People get headaches, digestive issues, things like that. These are all things that can result from a trauma that is just unresolved. And, it's not always the trauma that you're actually going through that you're going to suffer from that much. There can be these unresolved traumas, in which we all have unresolved traumas. I mean, there's probably nobody that's gotten out of childhood without them, but some of us have a lot. And then when something like this happens, it is just like throwing a match into gasoline, and the fire is, engulfing us basically. And so that's a lot of the long-term effects you're going to get from that. You can cause doubt in every aspect of your life. You literally will start to wonder if the guy at the gas pump is talking about you, if the girl that walked by your husband and looked his way when she was probably looking at the green beans on the shelf at the grocery store, were they giving each other a look? You will get to that point of almost paranoia at times if this isn't resolved, if this is a long-term thing that's going on. And we can just start to lose ourselves in pretty much every way. Anyways, so there's also effects that we all know, and many have, been affected by, is the reality of things is if there's not two incomes coming into our house, or if I have not been working because my husband is a supporter or my spouse is the main financial support in the house, how do I get a job? Maybe I never even prepared for that because we had made a pact many years ago not to have me work outside the house because I was going to take care of our kids, which was so important to us. But now I don't have the skills to work. I don't have an education. I don't have work experience. Any number of things. Or it could simply be I just haven't worked in a while. Or I work every single day, 40 hours, 60 hours a week. But alone, I don't make enough to meet our bills because your bills often live up to what your two household income is. And so you've got all these bills. You've got childcare maybe that you were taking care of or they were taking care of while you worked, or some other situation, and now you can't do that. Or maybe you're actually in a dangerous situation with your spouse. Maybe there's some domestic abuse and things where you're not comfortable where you're leaving your children because he may have access to them or she may have access to them and you feel they're dangerous. And maybe you're getting support from like the courts and such and child protective services, or maybe you're not. And that can be very, very threatening. And that's one of the worst ways of threat you could live under. And then, there's the aspects of your friends, your family. Can I leave my children with his mom now, like I've been doing, when I feel like she hates me? Things like that. There's a lot of things like that, a lot of aspects. And, a lot of what happens will be based upon, and like the trauma and how deep it'll go and how far it will go and resolution of it is based upon your partner's response to their actions. And I mean, the main thing is your response. But if you are looking for your partner to be sorry, to regret this, for it to be that one time, midlife crisis, I don't know. I mean, it can happen. It doesn't often happen, but it can happen. And then they're so sorry. They go get counseling. They want to go to marriage therapy. I mean, everything. We know there are times when a marriage comes out very strong after these things, but that's not the usual. And so, I mean, when we tell ourselves that that's going to happen and we want that to happen so bad, because we all do, we all want everything to fix itself and we'll work really hard at it. But if they're not working probably twice as hard as you at it, it's not going to do it. It's you're going to bang your head against a wall, because the problem that you're trying to solve is not actually your problem that you're trying to solve at that point. You have to work on you. And it's not to say that you don't have a problem. You didn't cause any of this. There was nothing you had any responsibility in. That's not the point of that. The point is you can't make somebody else make a different decision than you make. And so if your partner is over there with that person still, or having other partners still, or whatever it was that betrayed you, working constantly still, not interested in being home, or being home and only watching the football game all day. And I'm not talking about the guy that watches the game on Sunday and has time for you otherwise. I'm talking about the guy who can't find a minute to speak to you, and if you speak to him during the game, he blows up. Yeah, that's that guy. So, and once again, I want to be real clear. I'm not only talking about guys, but I think I'm kind of more aiming on that area. But these things all happen with two guys in reverse as well. And so if you're in that situation, I think we have to evaluate how much of the problem is a temporary problem, something that just happened, and something that is going to be a long-term problem. And I think more often than we think it will be, it's a long-term problem. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And so the next part we will go into is how we start behaving in ways you never did before. So what does that mean? That is things like, I never before thought I would allow my husband to treat me like this and not just leave him immediately. I think that's one of the biggest ones, is we all had these set programs in our mind about, if my man ever did that, I will blah, blah, blah. And when you don't do blah, 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 because real life is set in and it's not that easy, and you're in love. I mean, you love this person, and often, or you need them, or you're financially tied. You own a house together. You don't have the money for this or the time for this. Baloney. You want your kids to have a 2-parent household. Then we get into shaming ourselves because we're not living up to our expectation. And then you're getting into ways of behaving in ways you never did before, as in you can basically reach a level of paranoia. And is it justified paranoia? Sometimes it's very justified paranoia. Sometimes they are doing everything you thought they were doing and more to be betraying you. But sometimes, because there's been a few betrayals, you see everything as a threat. They cannot, literally, like we talked about before, they can't look in the way of another woman, or they must be cheating with them. They can't stay late at work to get something done because they must be sleeping with the secretary. These are things where you start to doubt everything about yourself. And it's just it's really hard because you don't know when you have reached a level of paranoia or truth, and you start to not be able to tell the difference. And then you get them gaslighting you and telling you you're being paranoid. I had to work late. And then you're getting treated poorly, and there's fights started that may not have been there before, but maybe they needed to be there. And there's just a whole area of blur of what is needed, what isn't, what's true, what isn't. And it's just, that's very, very hard and all. Then another aspect is often, we reach depression really quick in a situation like this, especially if we have past traumas where we have abandonment issues or trouble with actually bonding with people or trusting people. And this is just stepping on that so hard. And so we may get into areas where we have trouble reaching motivation. And how hard is it where you're having trouble motivation when you just found out you have to go get a job? You have to work harder. You have to go find a new childcare situation. You have to do so many more things. You have to be hypervigilant because you don't know if your person is cheating. So now you got to be more motivated in a time when your body says, I need rest. I can't even think and all. And one of the reasons we lose the ability to, we get the, I'm going crazy, or I feel like I can't think, is because the back of your brain is the area that experiences trauma and fight and flight. And when you're in fight and flight, which is what you literally get locked into in these situations, your body sticks in that. And when that happens, it is unbelievably hard to do anything else because the actual anatomy of your brain is that it cannot do two major functions at once like that. It is stuck in fight or flight, or it is stuck in other areas of your brain. So if I'm stuck in fight or flight, especially, some people are stuck here for years and all, it starts to have chemical effects on you. It starts to have, which are, damaging to your body, and you can get headaches. You can get, all kinds of physical effects. Autoimmune diseases have been shown to be linked to long-term stress and trauma. And you can start to literally think you're going crazy. And you're not going crazy. You are, a good example is, would you expect somebody that was running from a lion to be able to write a check at the same time? Would you expect somebody that's being chased by a lion to be able to arrange and figure out a new house or a new job, or to learn how to use the computer at this new job? No, you wouldn't, because they're under stress. They're under such stress. You are under the same stress at this time. You are expecting to make reasonable actions during a car wreck, and that's not reasonable. Nobody can do that. Quit being so hard on yourself. So anyways, that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to leave it there. And our next video, we're going to talk about some of the things you can do to start to bring yourself out of this, because it's super hard. It really is, to just live in a state of fight or flight. It is nearly impossible to function that way and to be your best self. You really just can't. And so let's figure out how to, and take baby steps. I think, like I say, I like things to have a little fun in them and have a little, I don't think everything has to be horrible all the time, even in a horrible situation. So let's find ways that work for you to bring yourself out of this lockdown of misery. So anyways, that's going to be on our next video and our next podcast of one. And I'll see you really soon. And thanks again for coming to visit me, Wendi of Helm. And this is I Went There. Bye, guys.